Welcome back to Our Take. Here we are once again. We're going to talk about the college system. The system itself, as far as college football, college basketball, and how the two works and how it entwines the pro game and how the exploitation is set up. Now, I'm saying this because for a college football player, he has to play at least 2 years.
Or be 21, right?
Or,
something like that?
Or 21 to enter his name into the draft. The system is set up that kids cannot come right out of high school and start making money. Tennis, baseball, all of them is different. But why do you think it is that football and basketball has this system in a place?
To help the schools, like we were just talking about.
You think so?
I think it's helped the school, and you made me, you kind of swayed my mind to that train of thought.
What you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely to try to benefit the schools. I mean, the argument in football is a player, physically developed to get tackled by a 32-year-old guy who's, bench pressing 500 pounds. I think in basketball, it really was to promote, the advancement of college basketball, and it's less about the physicality of the game. But, the system, I think, was to benefit the money making for everybody,
to spread the wealth.
And you know that these major leagues, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, they're all going to make money. But at the end of the day, the shelf life of a football player and a basketball player are very different than within themselves and the other sports too.
Can one of y'all answer this question for me? How come a major league team could draft a baseball player
and hold on to him
and hold on to him, and he could still go to college, but it can't happen in basketball and football?
Well, it happens in basketball in the sense that they draft European players that they're going to hold.
And that's what. And I was going to bring that up.
Because the European players are already professional, so their rules are set differently than ours here. Whereas you have to have an amateur status before you become a professional athlete here in America. And the European countries is not like that. You can go into the pros pretty much at any time.
Yeah, because Rubio was a pro at like 14 or something like that.
But let me flip something here. Let's talk about football. If a team wanted to draft a kid right out of high school, let's say he's 300 pounds, he has a size, but he's only 18. Every NFL team has a practice squad. They have a system set up that they can put that player there and let that player develop under them for the next 2-3 years, whereas he's now 21, and you can bring him up into the system, and you've had the rights to him and paying him for the past 3 years.
But they work hand in hand, so it doesn't behoove college institutions. And thinking about the system as a whole, what a little piece that we're missing, only because I work in higher ed, is what does it do for the school? Forget about the program. Forget about what is this doing for schools?
Let me address that. As an individual, I done went to high school. I have done my requirements to finish high school. I shouldn't have to worry about what the college is doing. I don't need a scholarship. I have the ability to go pro.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I agree with that. But so that's the system what I'm speaking of.
Right, but I can skip over college. I should be able to skip over college. The Dallas Cowboys can draft me in a draft, put me on a practice squad, keep me for 3 years.
Right. But the system in place, again, is set up so that you cannot do that. So that one hand washes the other.
Exactly.
It's a pyramid scheme. That's really what it is.
Okay.
Let's call it what it is.
That's what I want to get to.
It's a pyramid scheme.
That's what I want to get to.
That's why I made that point about the smoke screen about go to school and get an education. Like you said, the Dallas Cowboys could care less whether you pass, economics 101. If you're running your route and breaking the end zone and catching the ball.
There you go.
Because here's what's deep. We hear and see college coaches are fired all the time. And it's always because of their one-loss record. Am I right or wrong? Most of the time. Let's just say most of the time.
Right.
It's never because of their graduation rates.
Absolutely.
If school was so important and education was so important, if you had a losing coach that was graduating 80% of his football team, why would you fire him?
I got one.
Go ahead.
Because a losing football team is not bringing in money.
And that's so it goes back to the economics. It's not about education.
Right, but even still, a losing football team, depending on how they're winning, losing, whatever. Even a losing football team does bring in generate revenue for institutions.
Right.
Yo, there are kids that actually go to college because this school is a big school and has,
Gotcha.
the University of Michigan is good for that. Kids go to school. The revenue's there. The football team actually keeps the school together.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the school is kept together by the football team, by the basketball
But
team,
why- but-
by the program.
But
I got
why
one
was
better for y'all.
Rodriguez fired when he was graduating? 70% of his Michigan football
Because
players.
that's not what they care
were-
about.
and
Let
see,
me
wait,
give y'all something. I'm about to drop a jewel on y'all real
But
quick.
let's stay there though. If a university doesn't care about graduating students,
Right.
then what is it really doing?
Generating revenue.
Back
It's
to
a
economics.
business. It's a
Back
business.
to economics.
Do you guys know that in most institutions, Division I institutions, and people will probably, I wish people put comments on this stuff or whatever, Division I institutions, that the graduation rate, they do not count for the student athletes on certain teams as their graduation rate.
Why?
Because it would bring them down.
would bring it
tremendous.
down.
Exactly. They
Tremendous.
separate the two.
Tremendous.
They actually separate out the actual numbers
Absolutely.
of the
You know how much
athletes.
money they,
Can I
you know how much
go
money they make
something?
off these bowl games?
Oh well, that's another thing. Can
Like
I go
when-
to something else though?
okay.
Go ahead.
When we talk about the responsibility of the coaches, if you look at especially like the state schools, like a Florida State or
Michigan State.
Michigan State or University of Texas, these state schools, they employ a football coach or a basketball coach who is the highest paid state employee.
Joe Paterno, for years, the highest
Right.
paid state employee in the state of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Because he coached football
In
team.
the state
Because he
of
coaches
Pennsylvania.
football team.
Because he coaches the
So
football
what I'm
team.
saying to you is that the money, the dollars and cents, is a lot more important than anything else.
But how is it that the propaganda is still allowed to filter in and allow this whole premise that college at sports is about the college educating a college athlete?
Because once you turn that TV on and it's kickoff, no one cares about the education.
Well, let's be real too. Let's be real.
Good point.
If you guys look at numbers,
point.
particularly with football, we're talking about millions of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, specifically, a lot of those kids do actually finish school because a lot of those kids are not going to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we're talking about are the larger, predominantly on TV, in bowl game institutions that we see. Now, football, the graduation rate is higher than basketball.
Why?
Because
of the numbers.
Because of the numbers, A.
Because the numbers.
Also because of how it's set up. Football, you got to stay there for 2 years. Most kids redshirt. They're a little bit older. So most kids also, they may finish school before they, if you think about how Army and Navy is set up, you got to finish school. There's no, I'm leaving early. There's none of that.
So let me ask this question. 2017, isn't it past the time that universities pay these players to actually play a sport in which they're bringing in, like you said, the bowl games? They actually mentioned about the ACC tournament brought in $300 million.
Well, it was in the Barclays. I was
And-
a big juice up. I was there. So.
Okay,
Ridiculous.
$300 million, and not one of those players got a dime.
After the championship game, JJ Redick tweeted, "Congratulations, North Carolina and Gonzaga, but you kids need to get paid."
There's a lot of okay, just
Well, then
from
you're not an amateur anymore.
right. See, from a business, and this is what I'm saying,
okay.
they're businesses.
But excuse me for a second. But see, when we use the amateur status, here's the problem with that. These businesses that actually shadows themselves as universities are trying to call themselves universities when they're really a actual business.
Well,
so how?
right.
So come on. There
Here's where
shouldn't
you
be
got to
any
be
amateur
careful.
status.
Here's where you got to be careful because, think about financial aid, how these students get scholarships or whatever it is, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these schools are federally funded. You cannot mix federally funded money with tax levy money. Those are two
different
areas
things.
that we
I
got
got
to
you.
be careful with. So when you start, I agree that
Now,
players need to be compensated.
hold on.
And so you need to at least be able to eat. Damn, like,
Hold on.
you talking about
But
players
let me
going hungry,
ask you a
that's
question.
crazy.
When you have a kid like Alonzo Ball going into a college program, gets a college scholarship, and is only going to be in the school for 4 months, knowing and walking in the door, they sign him to a $60,000 scholarship that he's never going to use.
Shame on the
60,000?
NCAA.
Yeah,
What, for the 4 years?
for the first year.
Oh, it was
Shame on the NCAA.
For the first year,
60 grand?
60 grand.
UCLA?
That's a drop in the bucket for them.
Exactly.
There's no investment for
There's
them.
only a limited amount of people.
And guess what? Everyone's watching UCLA this year.
But they
Let me-
know
let me-
it. That's the problem that I
Let me
have.
give
Is
you
the
an
fact that
alternative
they know
solution
it.
to this. if we can't play the player, if we can't
pay the
players,
right?
Then why don't we set up a system where, you know, at least if you're an athlete, you get more money on your meal plan. You know, you get more resources for yourself.
Because then you're gonna have the kid like me who's a regular student saying what makes him more special.
Yeah,
Right.
I
want to eat too.
Listen, the coaches are doing that stuff anyway.
But that's-
so why not set up a system where they can legally do it?
Because they don't want to do that, because they don't want to share the wealth. The Fortune 500 company does not want to turn around and share the
Well,
money
not only
with
that,
the
not
people.
only that, because remember, when you're dealing with revenue is different at every institution. Every institution that is Division One falls underneath the same bracket and same rules of Division One. But you got more money than I do, so you can afford to pay a kid $1,000 a month for a stipend to eat. I can't afford to do that, even though I'm Division One.
Yeah,
But I fall under the
hold on,
same rules.
So
LIU
wait.
can't match up with Duke.
But wait, hold on, but see, now let's go into another way then, because when you look at the black colleges compared to the private D1 colleges, they're looked at differently. Am I right or wrong?
That's a whole.
No, of course, because
I mean, listen, I went to a small Division One school, and I can tell you that when you walked into our locker room, it was a big difference. I went to Michigan's locker room, and I was like, whoa. And I felt like I was getting a lot more than every other student was. I mean, even your meal money is supposed to be a specific amount no matter what school you're at.
That's right.
What I'm saying to you is if you have kids who don't have enough because they don't have the opportunity to go get a job, they don't have the opportunity to do anything past work study.
and practice.
Right. My point to you is why don't we now force the NCAA or put pressure on the NCAA to change the rules for athletes, that the schools, even if they can't afford it, they can allot more money for the student athletes. I remember getting books for free. I remember getting things that the regular student was mad anyway that I was getting.
Right.
This was part of my scholarship.
Hold on, stay there, because that's a great point, because there's something that I do want to bring up. We're going to leave you for right now, but we're going to come right back. We're going to stay on this topic. Segment number 2 coming, talking about college athletics. Peace.
Come on.